G'day so-and-sos and welcome to my sewing room. My name's Kathy and in today's video we're going to be looking at my Singer Ultralock overlocker. Now in Australia and Great Britain and this part of the world we call them overlockers. Pretty much everywhere else you guys call them sergers. It's the same thing, so don't worry about it. No matter where you live and what you call it, these things can be a pain in the butt if you don't know how to use them properly. So I'm going to go through today how to thread it properly, most importantly, but also how to clean and oil and maintain it, and also what all the different switches and dials do. I'll timestamp it so that you can pick and choose what parts you want to watch if there's something that you're not interested in, or if you want to watch the threading part over a few times, just to make it a bit easier for you. Okay, let's have a look at what we need to get this done today. Let's have a look at what I'm going to use today. So I've got a little vacuum cleaner. Now, whatever you do, do not use canned air on your overlocker or sewing machines. All it does is just blow all the lint and dust and crap back up into the mechanics of your machine where you can't reach, and it will cause you so many more problems. So always suck, never blow. Okay, then I've got some oil. Now, I've got mine just in a big thing like this for my industrial machines, but it's fine just to use the stuff that you get in a little pack. I'll be putting that in a bowl and then using these cotton tips as I go. I've got the little brush that comes with your machine, and then I've got a bit of fabric just to help wipe it all down, and then some fabric to test my stitches on. Then I've got some tweezers. You will need tweezers to help you thread the machine. It does come with tweezers. I lost mine a long time ago, but I actually prefer these ones because these stay closed with no pressure, and then you use pressure to open them. So it's a lot easier to use to thread the machine because you don't have to hold them closed and hold your thread. So if you've got a pair of these handy anywhere or you can get them easily, then I really recommend that. Okay, let's get cleaning. So to get it open, it's got a little pushy bit here. You just push that back on the spring and open it up. Now the first thing I'm going to do is cut these threads and get all of that out of the way. Cool. Oh, she's so dirty. Okay, let's start cleaning with the vacuum. There's only so much that vacuum was going to be able to get out because she's just so grotty and all this lint has stuck to everything. So now I'll go in with the brush and the cotton buds. So I'm going to take my presser foot off, and then I'm going to unscrew these screws and take my plate off as well so that I can really get in there and have a bit of a clean in there as well. So I'm just undoing those screws, lift up that little bit there and pull this plate off. And then, oh yeah, she's dirty. Then I can get right in here and get all of that out as well. Yeah, look how much extra I got out there. And now I'll just reverse the process. So just going to pop this back on and over and just pop my screws back in. Cool. Okay, I'll just pop my presser foot back on. Done. Ew, that's gross. So I want to get ready for rethreading my machine, but I know that my needles haven't been changed, honestly, since I've bought it. So I'm going to change my needles as well. So the first thing I'm going to do is take this presser foot off. So if I spin my machine around, I can see that lever there, which will lift up my presser foot. And then this little white one here will drop my presser foot. So I want to take this guy off. So spinning back around, I'm just going to pull up that back lever again just to give me that little bit more room and get my presser foot off. Now, when you're changing your needles, if you only want to change one at a time, you'll see the little screws on the front have B next to it and A next to it. So that's your B needle, and then your one over closest to the machine itself is your A needle. So if you only want to change out one at a time, then you just loosen the corresponding screw. So I'm going to undo both of these screws and remove my needle. Now my hand might get in the way a little bit, sorry. But I'll take that one out. And then that one out. And I'll dispose of those safely. So there's my new needles. Now with your needles, the back of it will have a flat shaft so that you know where the back is. So I'm going to have my flywheel all the way forward so that this shaft is all the way up, and I can pop my needle up in there and do up that screw. You really want to make sure that this is as high as it will go to give you plenty of room. And then the flat bit is at the back. There we go. And pop that one up. And you'll notice that your B needle sits a little bit higher than your A needle. And that's fine. That's how it's meant to be. Now I'll lift up my presser foot at the back, lift up that bit, and pop my presser foot back on. So let's talk about where we want to oil this thing. So this shaft bit here goes down into this bit and slides up and down as we sew. So I want to give that a good oil. So I've got that tip soaked in oil, and I'm just going to squish it out around that bit. And that will, as it moves, put my flywheel forward, and that will pull that oil through that mechanism. And then that bit down here as well, that moves as well. You can see how that goes back and forth as we sew. So we want to put a bit of oil on that as well. And then this bit back here. So pretty much anything that moves needs a little bit of oil. So where I've applied oil is here, down here, over in that bit that moves, and then at the back there on that bit that moves as well. and then just turning my flywheel towards me and let that oil sort of move around freely everywhere. Don't worry too much about putting oil that you're worried, might not go there, because all you're going to do is just get a little bit of oil on your thread, which will sort of get rid of, it'll just happen for the first minute or so anyway, so don't worry too much about that. Now we're going to have a look at the back of the machine. Now the three important bits that we need to pay attention to here. These cone holders, these guys up here, and then these little eyelets here are really important. We need to get all three of these right or our machine isn't going to work properly. So these guys here, these are here to hold our thread in place. If it's not there as we're sewing, that's going to rattle around like mad. Now have a look at these. See how one end, the top, is narrower than the bottom here? If I have it on that way with a narrow part at the top, I'm still going to get the rattles. So I want to make sure that the widest part of that is sitting at the top. So when I put my thread on, not going anywhere. Now that we've got our cone sitting nicely, we want to make sure that when we put our thread through this top loop, that it's going through so there are no twists, no turns. It's just setting through there nicely. So when you pop it in, you just do that. You just slide it over, and that goes the same for all of them. They just slide through and then come through like that. So we want to make sure that we've got that right. And then once we've got them all in, we want to make sure this is fully extended. And now we're going to talk about these guys. So if you have a close-up look, and I'll use my phone to get a bit of a photo that's in focus and pop it up on the screen, you'll see that one side runs vertical and then it comes down, and then the second part of it lays horizontal. It's important that when we put our thread through, we are putting it through correctly. So I'm going to have my thread so that the free end of it, so the loose end that has, that's chopped off that we're going to put through the needle, is in my left hand. And the thread that is coming off the spool is in my right hand. So always make sure that the free end is in your left hand and it's coming off the spool in your right hand. You just slide it up and under until it clicks and then pull. Don't try and thread it through the hole or anything like that. Just up and under and she's right. Okay, for this bit, I'm going old school and I'm filming with my phone because it has a better up close focus. So if the sound quality is changed, then I apologize. Okay, so we're going to look at threading this thing now. So if we open up the front of it and we have a look, we'll see that we've got a picture there and it has a diagram on how to thread our machine. You'll notice that it says to start with the red one, so the second one from the right, and then we go to the right, and then we start from the second one from the left, and then we go to the very first one, which will be the last one. So important that we make sure that we follow this. If we don't follow this correctly, our machine won't work. So don't be tempted just to thread it from left to right. Okay, so we're going to start with the red one. So I've made sure that I'm in my tension disc correctly, and then I'm going to come down and make sure that I pop it behind that first hook, ready to go. So now we're ready to thread up. So my first red dot is here. So I'm going to come up and underneath this first one, and then my second one is right next to it. So I can come underneath and make sure that I'm hooking in there properly. And then I'm coming up to my third one through there. Now from my third one, it's telling me to come up and thread through this needle up the top here. I want to make sure that I'm going behind this needle so that I can thread it up through that needle. So I'm going to take it and place it up through that needle and then pull it through to the back. Now I want to make sure that I'm behind this needle here. And then I'm just going to give that a bit of a pull, give myself enough thread, and I want it underneath that little plate there next to my needles, like that. So that is our first one done. Let's focus on the yellow one now. So as before, I've made sure that it's between my tension discs. I'm coming down and making sure that I remember to pop it behind that little loop there. So as before, we're going to follow the dots. So the first one is right down here near the bottom. Make sure that clicks in there. And then the next one is just underneath to the left. Make sure that clicks in there. Clicks in there. There we go, he's in. And then up underneath here. All right, so he's clicked in there. So we've got the first one, second one, third one, fourth one, and now we need to thread it into this needle here. But we don't want to go in from the front. We actually want to go in from behind. So I'm going to take that thread in behind that needle and push it right all the way down the back. And it will click in to a little holder thread catch bit behind there. It's really important that you get it in behind there correctly, and you'll feel it once it's in there. If you don't get it in there, that will just wreck everything and it won't work for you. Then I'm going to give myself a clean edge and get it through this needle. Just going to get that needle where I want it, about there. Cool. And pull it up and over. So I want to make sure that it's above the red one. Give myself plenty to work with. Cool. So when I turn my flywheel, I want to make sure that it's up and over the back of this piece and that red one. And then same thing, I'm going to pop it underneath that plate with the red one. Okay, that's those two done. Now let's look at number 3, our green one. So I've made sure it's through my tension discs correctly. Come up underneath that loop, follow the dots. So up and over the top of that one, down to my little twisty thing, wrap it around once over the top. So I've wrapped it around from my left-hand side and then up over that little freestanding bit. And then I can put it through my right-hand needle. Cool. Give myself plenty of thread. Phew. And pop it under with the other two. Now, blue one, last one. So same thing, making sure it's through my tension discs, coming down underneath that bit first, over the top where it's got that blue dot. Make sure it's all the way back. Down around my needle, that little loopy bit, and then I can thread. Cool. And pull. Make sure you've got plenty, and again pop it with the other ones underneath that little metal bit. Okay, we are threaded. We are all threaded up. Now, sorry if that light is strobing, it's just going to happen. Now, I'm going to lift my presser foot up. So I'm not going to shove my fabric all the way under there. I'm just going to pop it in a little bit. On a normal sewing machine, you'd want it up nice and close to the needle, but overlockers work a bit different. So pop my foot down. It's always going to be noisy. They are just naturally noisy. Give it a bit of a tail and have a look. That is all looking pretty good to me. Now let's just go over a few things and what the dials are and stuff like that. Now before we sew, the very first thing is my tension. I've got my tension on a 3 across the board. That's pretty standard. If you leave your tension on a 3, you'll be right. If you start messing with the tension, then you're going to have problems. If you're having problems with your stitches coming out, it's more than likely because you haven't threaded it correctly, you haven't got it through those little eyelets properly, you haven't got this guy up properly, any one of those things. So make sure that your tension is on it. Let's have a look at some of these dials. So the big one here is your flywheel. Now it's got an arrow on it pointing forwards. You only ever want to wind this forwards. It's what's going to lift your needles up and down. If you start winding it backwards, it's going to jam up the works and your overlocker won't work properly. Same as on a sewing machine. So like on a sewing machine with your overlocker, only wind this forward towards you. Now this one here is your stitch length. So it's got 2 to 4, and then F is for fine. So I usually use that on around a 2.5. Now let's talk about this lever. Now this is for your differential feed, and that means your feed dogs. So you've got feed dogs underneath your presser foot, which help grab and move your fabric along. On an overlocker, there is a front one and a back one. And when your lever is set like I have it on a 1, they're moving in unison and just moving your fabric along. And as you can see on this type of cotton fabric, that worked really well. There's no puckers or gathering in my fabric. So number 1 or neutral for that type of fabric is really good. If you find that your seams are coming out wavy, then you want to try and increase it. So move this down. If your seams are coming up gathered or sort of stuck together, then you want to move that up. But before you start messing with this thing, make sure that you have checked that your machine is threaded correctly and everything is sitting where it's meant to, and then start messing with that. If you're using lightweight or stretchy fabric, that's when you might really need to have a little bit of a play with that one. But doing all that is a video for another day. So I hope that's given you a better understanding of how to look after and use your machine, and more importantly, maybe how to troubleshoot those issues when they do arise so that you don't just throw in the towel and not use it, because they really are fantastic machines once you get them all figured out. Okay guys, as usual, if you liked my content, please give me a like and subscribe, and check out my channel for some other awesome sewing and bag making content, and I will see you next time. Until then, remember, it's only fabric. We can always buy more. Okay, bye peeps. Bugger.